All right, so for those of you who don't know, this is Bill Gilbert from the Moderate Party. Paul Roselli, who is going to compete in the Democrat primary. Giovanni Ferrosi, who is going to compete in the Republican primary. And Spencer Dickinson, who is going to compete in the Democratic primary. As I say, we really don't have any rules tonight. There's a bunch of topics I'm going to throw out. I'm going to expect all you guys may chime in as you will. Just not interrupting each other a lot. And I'll try to make sure everybody speaks, has the same amount of time to speak. But since we are talking about the governor's race, I'd like to start with you, Spencer. We'll just go down the road because of the way you guys are sitting. What is it that you think the governor of Rhode Island, what qualities should the governor of Rhode Island have? What do you have that would make you a good leader of this state?
First, I think that it's a tough job. It's a management job. The governor should have management skills and a willingness to focus on putting those skills to work, as opposed to, say, raising money for some other campaign or working for certain interests. We've departed a long way from the path that this state should be on. We're doing a lot of things that really have nothing to do with Rhode Island. And, first one that comes to mind is the Burrillville power plant. We don't need it. It's not about Rhode Island. It's about spending $1 billion and then putting it out onto the backs of the ratepayers while we're building real alternative energy sources. And you may have heard me say it, if I'm elected governor, there will be no power plant in Burrillville. That's an example. If you have, over the course of the evening, maybe we can touch on a half a dozen more. I can think of the hotel on the State House lawn. We don't need that. It's about profit. It's not about managing the state of Rhode Island. That won't happen if I'm governor. Gantries, that's not a business friendly thing. It's not a good idea. People don't trust them. We shouldn't be building them. Health and Human Services, that's a management issue. The government has spent $495 million. The program hasn't been put into effect. It was supposed to start working in October. It doesn't work. Supposedly there are 500 coders, programmers, flowchart drawers working on this. I used to be in that business. I worked for Prudential Insurance in Boston and Citizens Bank in Providence. In the shop, we had maybe 20 people, analysts and programmers. You don't need 500 people to fix that problem. You don't need 500 people working for Deloitte. They claim there are 500 people fixing the problem. Meanwhile, people are doing it without their food stamps and their health payments. And somebody says there are 500 people working on it. I think the governor ought to be down there counting those people. I think she might have, they're not in Cranston, she might have to go to Bangladesh to find them. I don't think they're there. But I think the point is, and Abney, and the chair of the Finance Committee said this very well when he found out that there's a $200 million shortfall in the budget. When you start a project, you've got to get down to the level of the project management and make sure it's getting done. That's not being done. So the problem is Rhode Island is a political, it's showbiz. It's not actual management. And the thing that makes me be interested in running is I think I can bring that to this. It's not an easy job, it's just a long, tough job. I might not even go to a parade, but we got some work to do here. And we've had 4 years of not getting it done. It's time for a change.
Okay, so you feel like your strength and what is needed is more hands-on management?
Yeah, I would say that. And I'll add to that it helps to know the players. And, again, since I'm promoting myself, nobody else will. I've had 12 years in the legislature. I've worked under 6 different speakers. Some of them left partly because they weren't getting along with me. I might have left once or twice because I wasn't getting along with them. But I know the players. I know I've been on the Finance Committee for 3 years. I understand how the program works.
Okay, Mr. Ferrosi, what do you think the governor should bring? What does the state need in the top elected official?
Vision.
Okay, now we'll go on to Paul.
And you know what? I'd be glad to end on that. I mean, because the reality is, that's what I bring to the table that no one really understands, is how to actually move forward and grow and become what you want to be, not what you are. So That's how it starts. Business planning, understanding to create an objective, and not looking at what you have, but what you need to meet that objective. So the I didn't want to come off the bat and start you know, spatting here, so to speak, with something that was said. But there's a clear distinction, right? I'm a leader. I have a ring here. It's from Fort Benning, Georgia. I was enlisted in the Army, and then I became an officer later. It's an infantry ring. There's a statue in the front of the United States Army Infantry Center. His nickname is Iron Mike. And it stands like this with a hand like this. And the key phrase underneath is, follow me. Okay? I'm a leader. You hire managers. Okay, so I have a clear distinction there. I hope there's something for you to run maybe in my administration.
Are you under the impression you're the only person here that was in the Army?
No, not at all.
Okay, just want to clear that up.
Yeah, not at all. So the key though is that leadership is the key message. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 paths. You're either on a path in education, you're on a path to an occupation, or you have an occupation that you want to make more money at. And I'm not talking about an extra dollar or an extra $5,000. Talk about where you jump. Maybe you make 50 and now you can make 75. Maybe you make 75, you're going to make 100, 150. You're making 30, maybe you make 60. Okay? I see people here from West Warwick. My life changed when my dad, who never made more than $30,000, was no longer the mark that was set. It was my brother, who had a small business that did, you know, $250,000 a year gross, but maybe brought home 75 or 80. Just think of what it did for us. So we went from the duplex on Providence Street to the triple decker that we then owned first, you know, we lived on the first floor, owned the rest of the place, and then got the raised ranch up by the high school and the football field. So I'm going to put you on one of those 3 paths, the first 2 being education, occupation, and the third one's retirement. You have to be on a path to retirement. And that has to be, again, prosperity at the end of it. Not hold on for your dear life. Not, you know, eroding your disposable income. Everybody's going after disposable income. That's the key problem in Rhode Island. And obviously I have a lot more to say, but leadership is what it's all about. And it's just no way possible, with all due respect, that anyone here has the leadership training that I have. I got it at the Wharton School of Business, the Advanced Management Program, and I got it in the military to degrees that I think, both enlisted and officer-wise, that I think brings the skill set complete to the job. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzelli, what do you offer to Rhode Island?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to thank Bill Gilbert for putting this thing together. This is a worthy endeavor. This makes sense. If you ever want to know how the candidates stand or sit, this is one of those opportunities. I also want to thank all of you. This is how democracy works. This is how this process makes sense. And without it, it doesn't make any sense. You might want to hire a manager. You might want to hire someone who has led in past lives. But the beauty of this system is that you get to hear from everybody, and that's what's important here. I also want to thank you, Bill, because you bring kind of a, excuse me for saying, a moderate kind of viewpoint when it comes to some of these issues. The one thing I bring is your voice. That's what I'm running as. I'm running for you. I'm not running as a manager, I'm not running as a leader, I'm running for you, for your voice. Because you don't have a voice right now, because there is no state leadership. There are no managers in that state house. And you need someone who can inspire, motivate, and turn a whole state one voice at a time. I want to be that person. I want to be that person that wakes up in the morning, goes to sleep at night, and in those 10 to 12 to 14-hour days, make Rhode Island better. That's what I'm bringing to this campaign, and that's what I'm bringing to this state.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Gilbert.
Hi, I'm Bill Gilbert. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. I like what everybody said. I think if you took a little piece of every person here, including in the audience, is what we're looking for. My intent pulling everybody together tonight was I look at the governor's race and all the political races as job interviews. You know, most people just want to get up and play with their kids and go to work and mow the grass, and they want to have a life, that American dream. You know, they want to go to movies, and they want to have grandkids like me. And I want to push. You know, I got a little Olivia. She's 5 years old. She actually just turned 6. We're going to Walt Disney World on Saturday. Yeah, I got Olivia, and I got Farrah. She's 2.5. I got Arena. She's 4 months old. You know, there was a point in my life when I was a kid, and I was dependent on my mother and my father and my school teachers and my government. That's for me. And as I got older, things started to change for me. I became the parent, my grandparent, and the government. You know, no longer am I a victim of society, I am a society. And what do I give back? But Gio talked about vision? Absolutely. In management, I like to say PVI, purpose, vision, and inspiration. You know, that's what I do. I'm a manager too. I'm a manager, but I also try and inspire. I got to pull people together. And here's my first attempt, and I got to apologize to everybody, okay? I have to apologize that we don't have all the candidates here. I wasn't successful. I didn't meet my goal. I'm actually just down by 1. I didn't think I'd get everybody the first time out, and I didn't think I would fill every chair. But that's my goal. See, I believe that the people are the 4th branch of government. That's just what I believe. And I believe pulling everybody together, and our country will be better for it if all of us participate. That's why I like the moderate party. It's not that I'm not Republican or Democrat. What I liked about the moderate party when it started in 2010 is that there was a center. It's like running right up the middle. I wanted to run right up the middle because I don't hold 100% of any party. And how do I get people together? And how do I get them in the same room? And how do we talk politics again? We're America. We don't talk politics at night. But, you know, we all shake our head and go, yeah, we don't talk politics anymore. But that's not even true. You do. I do. They do. Let's not have those fringes run our country anymore. I don't want those fringes running our country. You can be as progressive as you want, as long as we talk. You can be as right-wing and as much as you want, as long as we talk. That's what I'm trying to do. And I hope the rest of the candidates start joining, because I think we're going to do more of this. I think it's hilarious that Joe Trillo's truck is out there and he doesn't show up. I told him to park in front. We got a picture in front of it, didn't we, Bill?
Yeah, that's not
Because I tell you what, I'm going to hold him accountable. Are you? I think that's what's wrong with America. Candidates can think that they can send their truck and not show up themselves. What are you going to do about it? That guy wants to be your governor. It's a job interview. What are you going to tell him? I'm Bill Gilbert. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's start talking about some of the issues that are facing the state. And I think a big one is the state of the schools in Rhode Island. And the governor's proposed a $1 billion investment in schools, starting off with a $250 million bond issue that's going to go before the voters. And some of that is going to be combined with local funds, and then another bond issue down the road, and so forth. I was listening to the radio the other morning, and Len Ladaro was talking, the economics professor from URI. And he was saying that this is the wrong way to rebuild schools, that this is just writing a check or issuing a credit card to take care of an issue that you're not budgeting for, that you aren't set to maintain, that it's just going to result in more credit being extended down the road when these schools fall apart, the new schools fall. Let's hear what you all have to say. Paul, you're nodding your head. What do you think about the schools?
So let's go back 20, 30, 40 years, and why didn't we? Why didn't we build into each and every budget some monies for maintenance, some monies for brand new schools, some monies for upgraded technology. I remember when my two kids were going to school, I was on this technology committee. And there was a push, not only to get it right.
The mic is not on, Paul.
No, it's on.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on.
Hold it closer.
You guys all right back there?
Yeah, how we doing?
Everybody
We're doing
good?
good.
Okay.
I don't, trust me, I don't need it.
Yeah,
But even 15, 20 years ago when my two kids were going to school, there was a local push to make sure that the technology, the buildings themselves at the local level
Yes.
were maintained. Somewhere along the line, we forgot about that in our state budgets. And now here we are 20, 30, 40 years later, and we've got $500 million, if not more, over the next few election cycles.
Yes.
To make sure that those buildings are either, some of them get torn down, or we maintain.
So what is your solution?
Yeah, it's time for us to make education number one, and to take it to a level that each and every one of us at the local and the state level has to put some money into it.
So is it more from the locals or more from the state?
Both.
How do you?
Both, and we've got to look at ways of reducing some of those costs. We have 39 towns and cities, and we've got about 34, I believe, superintendents of education. We've got a couple of regional schools. We need more regional schools. We need less superintendents. We need less of the administrative side of it, and more for the teachers. The teachers they are the ones who do this stuff each and every day. They teach, they maintain classroom decorum, and they move the kids from being someplace at the beginning and move them to where they are at the end.
Okay.
We have to put more money into both the educational infrastructure as well as the teachers, and we got to do that individually. It's time we did that.
Giovanni. How do you feel about the way they're going about it? And clearly the schools are in atrocious condition. There were a bunch that had to shut down during the winter for frozen pipes and leaks. Within every district, apparently, there are schools that are substandard. So it's an emergency. Got to do something about it. What's your way out?
So here's where, again, I think that, if you're looking for someone who's more of a maintenance type person, it's kind of status quo, then I'm not that person, okay? I'm looking at something completely different. I think that we've evolved. Online learning has evolved. It's a tremendous asset. I would put more money into teachers. I would put more money into systems that are technology-based. Therefore, you have to understand, how you're going to take care of children for working parents. There's just a whole other thing we should be doing. So in the short term, sure, we need to bridge and maintain a healthy setting for the kids where they go today. Mm-hmm. But unless you're already looking and planning for the new way ahead, we're way behind. We're putting money into something that's just not going to operate like that anymore. It's like, going back into a manufacturing facility the way it was 40 years ago and putting money into it in that same way, and not accounting for fulfillment centers that look like what they do today.
Right. So that's a good idea. But what do we, like you say, what do we do next winter? Well, I mean, what do we do we have to have school buildings, no?
We do. I'm not saying we don't, but what I'm saying is the activities. If you look at a regular school day, so I have 5 children, okay? I have a college graduate, I have a soon-to-be college graduate in about 4 weeks, and 1 going in high school and 2 in middle school, okay? We've all been in these buildings. We know what they look like, okay? The gyms don't look the right way, and the furniture isn't the best. But again, it's what are they really going there for, right? It's for an education. So if you instead take money and you incorporate it into, I'm just using today's technology, okay, iPads or whatever it is, right? Chromebooks, not where they have to leave them in the library, where they actually, that's what they use, okay, and they go home with it. That's where all the textbooks are downloaded on it. When I went to Wharton, every single class was on, everything that I needed was in my iPad, everything.
All right, but
okay?
I guess the question is, where's the money come from?
But again, so what happens is this. You have to, it's not how much money you throw at it. You can throw as much money as you want at something. It's how you use the money. So if you look at a new environment, right? If we look at even today's, I'm just going to jump to higher education for a second. If you look at a building, right? The School of Engineering at URI might have been in a building that was whatever it looked like in the 80s or 70s, wherever I went there, okay? Today's building is still a School of Engineering, but it has a whole new guts of it.
Right.
And so for me, I just haven't heard the rest of the discussion. So of course the building trades want to say, yes, let's do it. I want them to have jobs too. What I'm saying is, unless you design what the new school is, even the school safety discussion we're having today. If you look in Florida, some counties, they've already begun. They're saying, okay, every window has to be 8 feet off the floor. You know, that's where the thing is for safety. You're going to have an entry point. All of the things, none of that discussion is happening.
Well,
So you
I'm not sure that's
can't
true,
jump
but
to-
I think that,
You can't jump to $1 billion expenditure without knowing what you're going to put the money into.
all right, but let's move on. Let Bill Gilbert jump in here. And where do you think, I'm gonna grab one of these waters. Is it right, is the path to bond for these schools and get the local contribution the right way to go to upgrade the facilities for our students?
I think we definitely need some type of bonding. Let me start with the deplorable condition of our schools. This is where I take a little different approach than Gio at this point. This is where I think it is more about management. It's not just vision. You need a manager that can execute. You need a manager that gets enough salt for the sidewalks, enough salt for the parking lots. You have to have a manager that knows when to execute and fill the cracks in the asphalt. Our conditions are deplorable because we haven't executed and we haven't held people accountable. There's two factors to that. We need to have a resume. Our facilities maintenance crews and our facility directors shouldn't be political appointees. They should actually have a resume that matches the job description. So our buildings don't get in this deplorable condition. But here we are. So we can go back 25 to 30 years and figure it out. Well, it's politics. We don't have to figure it out. We know what happened. We put the money somewhere else. We don't have an unlimited pot of money. And every year we have to figure out where we're going to allocate it. And we don't allocate it to the schools. Real simple. We need to start allocating it to the schools, and we got to make sure we have the managers that know where to put it. This is just basic blocking and tackling. This is brick and mortar. This is the reason why you can have a governor that has a lot of inspiration, that has a lot of purpose and a lot of vision, but he better surround himself with people that execute. You got to execute.
All right, that's how we got where we are. Now, how do we get out of it?
You're going to have to do some bonding, and at the same time, Gio's approach is a little bit correct. I think what we need to do is identify the schools that we actually need. Populations have been declining. Let's take the schools that have the least amount of work and have the most potential for upgrades. Fiber optic cable, wireless cells, which ones are in the right zones to add these things? Do they have an infrastructure worth repairing? We don't want to just go in and take a boiler that's full of asbestos to shut the school down. This is why you have to plan this stuff out. These are engineering questions. Engineering questions should be answered by engineers. Lawyer questions should be answered by lawyers. Management questions should be answered by managers. I don't know that we have all of the data, but we've got to fix roofs. Kids should not be sitting in classes that leak.
Can I just jump in one thing just to add to that, because I think it's
Absolutely.
important. So,
Got to be quick.
yeah, I will, and thank you for an extra minute here. I just, you know, in Iraq, we were getting annihilated, for lack of a better word, okay? Going from Baghdad airport to the green zone, okay? The IEDs were just tearing us apart. Every week, every month. We had to go into what's called an operational pause. We had to redesign a vehicle that could actually take care of the problem. And then we had what you all might recall was the surge, and then we did, you know, other things. So that's all I'm saying is that, you know, I don't want to abdicate taking care of the schools. Of course you do. But before you just say, hey, let's raise $1 billion, let's just go repaint the same room, and let's just make, you know, put the same desk configuration in place and everything else. We need to take an operational pause for a second. The problem's been identified. Just don't rush with the solution. In the military, we say, don't rush to failure. Just don't rush with a solution using everybody else's money. So I just want to make that point.
Thank you. So Spencer, what do you think?
Well, I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, and especially Giovanni, you can help learn a heck of a lot in the Army. But I do take a slightly different, I want to emphasize a different point. And you have to consider, there's a proposal now for a $1 billion bond issue spread out over a couple of years, but it's a big proposal for bonding. You have to consider, where's this proposal coming from? Now, I've spent 12 years aggregate in the House of Representatives, 3 of those on the Finance Committee. I've been on the Oversight Committee. I've seen some of this stuff from the inside, and particularly from the political point of view. You have to ask yourself, what's the motivation for this bond issue? What's it all about? And if you know anything about bond issues make lawyers rich, and they make people in New York rich. And when we were holding very important hearings on 38 Studios, one of the things we learned is that there are people in New York that want to force feed bonds to us. And if you're the director of a department in Rhode Island government, somebody is going to come here from New York, and they're going to take you to lunch, and it's not going to be at Burger King. The point is that they are forcing the bonds on us, and we have somebody in the State House that is receptive to that and benefits from that. And if I were trying to build up a war chest of $3.5 million or $5 million to beat a bunch of guys like us with, one of the things I'd do is, yeah, I'd propose to sell bonds to Wall Street. They love those bonds. Those bonds bring interest rates that you can't get if they don't come from a government or a municipality. Do we need money for schools? Do we need warm, dry schools? Of course we do, safe. But maybe we ought to take another really good look at it. And here's another thing to consider too, and it's a question of education. You've got teachers in the state, and in addition to that, you've got public employees who suffered when their COLAs were taken away and when their retirement plan was changed. And that was done, and I was there, that was done by a duo of somebody that went to prison as speaker and somebody that is now governor. And they were lockstep, joined at the hip when they did it. I saw it, I was there, I talked to every single member of the committee. I went to all the so-called hearings. They weren't really hearings, they were showbiz. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that. So maybe if we've got $1 billion to buy bonds, and I don't think we do, but if we have some money, maybe we ought to consider the fact that we want to attract the best teachers. That's how Norway went from an agrarian society to a society that had the best schools in the world. We want the best teachers. We want to put our money, of course the buildings have to be warm, safe, and dry, but the real issue is teachers and curriculum. That's what's going to change those kids coming out of 3rd grade into kids that are going to do chemistry and physics in high school and get the good jobs and bring the good companies to this state. The governor that we have now, speaking of vision, Giovanni, that's not her vision. Her vision is, let's spend some money on interest. Let's build up a huge state obligation which takes money out of our budget because it's got to go to finance those bonds. Then there's no more money for raises for public employees, and there's no more money to resolve an issue which I think needs to be resolved like right now, and that is the fact that people work for this state, made career choices, worked years for this state expecting nothing less than a COLA, dollar value adjustment, whatever you want to call it. We need to bring that back, and we need to do it right away.
All right, thank you, Spencer.
Let me jump in just for a minute. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned by, excuse me guys for saying this, is 4 white old guys, is that there are a lot of other colors out there. There are a lot of other people out there. A lot of shades of white, shades of brown. And if we don't bring those folks into the discussion in school construction, how the schools are managed, who is going to get some of that money and how it's going to be spent.
Each time?
Well, I'm trying to, Spencer, but it's kind of a universal. It's a universal point. I mean, if I was in front there, I would point to the book. But the idea is that we can't ignore nearly 40% of the population in this state. And we don't represent those, at least in terms of color. But we can represent those people in terms of how we act and how we bring those people into a discussion. So in anything we do with education, and this has been done right across the border in Massachusetts, any type of new development or new facility or new infrastructure, there's the local population that gets involved in the construction. There's the local managers, there's the local leaders who all have a say in how that place works and how it's going to be built. You're right, $500 million or whatever it is a waste of money unless there's all of you here and and everyone else outside who gets involved in that discussion. That's how we're going to fix the educational system.
Hold that thought, because I got an answer for what he said,
Well,
or an elaboration.
I want to jump on a hot button issue about schools, and Giovanni mentioned a little bit about the school safety and building windows that are 8 feet off the ground. What should we do in Rhode Island, Bill, about school safety?
Well, there's $1 million question. We're struggling with it nationally. You know, a lot of people want to hear a gun question, right? We got to protect our students just like we protect our judges and our politicians. You know, I go to the State House, I got to walk through a metal detector. That's the fact of the matter, right? And I go to the courthouse, I got to go through a metal detector. You know, when I hear my friend Paul Rosselli, you know, he brings up multiculturalism. You know, I was a kid that when I was bused to an inner city down in Florida, I was part of that Brown education decision, and they moved the line. And when I went to school, I went to Poinsett School. It was a Poinsett Middle School in Rockledge, Florida. You can look it up. And they used to escort us in with the police. And if I was late for school, I had to fight my way home and fight my way to school when you're late for school. You know, talking about gunplay, I grew up in a ghetto. And I got myself out of it. And I recognized the need for safety because, you know, I was scared.
All right, so you want police to escort the kids to school?
I do not say I want police escort to school, so, you know, here's the essence of politicians. It's good trying to, but I'm not going to eat that word, okay? We have kids killing each other today, and that's a cultural problem. And it's compounded by the fact that we have a country that allows guns. So we have a cultural problem, we have a mental health problem that we're not dealing with in this country, whether it be opiates or mental health conditions. And we have guns. And we have open schools. First of all, we got to harden the targets. I think we got to do that. We owe it to our children. If we do it for our politicians, if we do it for our state elected leaders, if we do it for our judges, and every time an officer can pull you over, he can take your weapon away from you under the Second Amendment due to his safety. I've never seen such a thing in my life. Our country was founded on, this is what I believe, our country was founded on that the rights of the people and the safety of the people were paramount of that of the government. But yet we protect the government, not the people. So I don't know the answer, but
you're losing me a little bit here, because if you want to protect the people, you're asking the government to do it.
no, I think it's multifaceted. I don't know that this question can be answered in a debate with, like you said,
Okay,
four white
okay.
guys.
Well, let me just run down the line so the other guys can jump in here. Is hardening the schools the way to make them safe?
Well, you know, this is a situation where we have a lot of what amounts to copycat crimes, and I hope the time will come when people forget and move on, and something else takes over the news. And I'm not blaming the news, but it sure doesn't help that every single one of these shooters gets to be world famous. We have security issues at every single school, and as a, you know, I believe in action and administrating leadership vision, whatever you want to call it, but each town has a superintendent, or they belong to 2 or 3 towns together, and we have a police chief in each town. There are 39 police chiefs. If they're not good, then we should get better police chiefs. I think the police chiefs are good. They assess, in my opinion, they assess the schools. If they need to bring in consultants, they do it. But I think it should be on a town-by-town basis. One of the questions has come up, should we arm teachers? Should we have veterans? Okay, I've been in the Army. I just want to tell you something. I do not believe that I should have a 40-hour shift carrying an M14 or an M16 at a school. That's not where I belong. And if I volunteer for it, you know, you should have your doubts about that, because that's not the real plan. You know, our schools need guards, they need protection, they need maybe town to town a different evaluation, but I think that's the responsibility of the police chiefs, and I think maybe we need security people in the schools. They should be armed, and they should be on a roster. They should report to a police chief. If Texas has enough armed teachers that they want to have a different plan, that's Texas. That's not what we should be doing here, unless there's a town that really wants to do that, something to think about. But basically, secure the schools with a plan that points out the weak points, a single entry. The police chief can handle it.
All right, let's hear, Paul, what do you think? to make the schools safe in Rhode
Yeah,
Island,
sure.
what's the first step?
Sure, well, all of a sudden it sounds like we're talking about guns now. So,
Well,
so
I think we are. I mean, safe means
safe
from
from
gunplay.
something, sure. So I'm okay with the Second Amendment. And let's get that on the table and quickly take it off the table. I don't think anybody up here is against or in opposition to what the Second Amendment says.
Is anybody opposed to the Second Amendment?
All right,
Okay.
we agree on that. Fabulous, thank you.
Bringing people together already.
I'm trying. You know, I'll tell you about my two kids, and I'll tell you about my experience too. But very quickly, my two kids grew up with a school after school after school. There was a police officer who made the rounds. And that seemed to be something that seemed to work for them, both in terms of any external threats and anything that happened in school. And occasionally there was something that happened in school. And I think everybody here would agree that, yeah, you know, every once in a while, and everyone here, yeah, I remember the police officer kind of helping out in the situation. That seemed to work. I don't ever remember my education, my kids' education, and I'm 65. Wow. In all those years, I never remember the types of shootings or types of guns or types of anything that entered the school and did the destructive power that the potential is there for today. That's never happened. To answer your question, tomorrow we can initiate a plan to make sure that there's a local police officer who makes the rounds of the local schools. That seems to work. Number two, we're going to build schools, we're going to revamp some of the educational systems across our state, put in some type of security camera. That seems to work too. And the third thing is all of us here, every single one of us, because when you get a community involved, when you get the people involved, the mental health issues are recognized by the people in that town. When you get involved, and the people who are watching, things get better in the educational system. I know this. My parents, long ago, got involved in the educational system.
Okay.
And it worked for me.
So Giovanni, besides putting windows 8 feet off the ground, what can we do to make the schools safe in Rhode Island now?
Sure. So, you know, I tried to answer it within about 24 hours from the latest dialogue. The reality is this. I mean, we need to obviously include parents, right? You need to tell parents to parent, number one, okay? I think we all get caught up in all this kind of, you know, trying not to be in your kids' lives and letting them do whatever they want. You need to see what they're doing. You need to ask, right? You need to have part of that conversation. You know, the security apparatus, to me, is a no-brainer. This is something that you actually go ahead and do. We cannot go to a basketball game at the dunk without going and getting wanded through. You can't, you know, so we're acting like we don't know how to do it. We do it every day. You know, someone mentioned the court, Bill mentioned the courts and the other things. So the bottom line is just an expectation. So let's just set the expectation to go into school. As I said, the new place, I think it's Lee County or somewhere down in Florida, that's what they did. That's it. There's a single point of entry. You come in, you go through the detectors, and you go to school, and you're on the campus. But it's how it's designed. The design is extremely important. You know, they created this situation where it's almost like you get funneled in this way, and then you spread out. You kind of know where you're going. I remember going to Bloomberg headquarters in New York, and they have a free food on the 6th floor. Right? It makes everybody go to the 6th floor to kind of like, that's where you start your day, and then you shoot off from there. That's going to be the design. This is where I might change things up a little bit. I think that we have a program that works. It's called air marshals. Okay, we already do this on airplanes. You don't know who the person is. They're armed. They're in place. If something happens, they can respond. Where I might go a little bit kind of, again, different than even that program is I don't know if they need to be armed in some cases. I also would want to identify some people whose responsibility is to be in the lunchroom. Is there going to be a fight at 2 o'clock? Is there going to be something else that's going on? Is someone getting bullied to a degree that something might happen? Like, let's get in there and embed ourselves in that conversation. I do think video games are a problem. I think video games are a big problem. You know, how do we address that? I don't have the solution yet, but I do think that sitting for hours at a time, playing a game that just shoots, and kills every single day for hours cannot be a good thing. It's just impossible.
Okay.
So with that said, I guess comprehensively, I think you have a single point of entry, put in the apparatus to just walk through or get wanded real quick, have a default where you have some basically air marshal types who get assigned that duty, have a couple of people don't need to know who they are, who are armed, and just move on with that for now as a kind of an immediate response to what we're doing. And I do think the whole discussion got hijacked into a gun discussion. It's not a gun discussion. This is a school safety issue. And we're being very irresponsible turning it into a gun discussion. Let's take care of the kids in the schools.
All right, let's switch to something that I know a few of you would be happy to talk about, and that is the generation of electricity for people in Rhode Island. Now, I noticed recently, I was reading one of the blogs, how Deepwater wind was brought into this state to kickstart the offshore wind power generation in this continent. And in exchange for us paying 3 times as much for that electricity as we pay for any other electricity, they were going to headquarter all their development up and down the coast at Quonset Point. Except all of a sudden New Bedford, Fall River, and Somerset are going to get the jobs for their gig off of Massachusetts. And they're doing another one down in Long Island, and I don't think that there's going to be any jobs at Quonset Point from that. I'm digressing a little bit, but where should Rhode Island get its power? I mean, you anti-Burrillville people are loaded for this one.
Don't call me an anti-Burrillville people.
I mean, anti-infra energy.
No, well, we'll see.
Well, you want to start off?
Yeah, you bet. Are you kidding? I've devoted the last 3 years of my life working on this.
And we don't get 3 years to talk about it.
So for those of you who don't know, there's a fracked gas fired power plant being proposed for the middle of the woods in upstate Rhode Island. Upstate? Northwest corner of Rhode Island.
And also, not to interrupt, but a LNG tank.
And an LNG tank being proposed at Fields Point in downtown Providence. So the generation of electricity, I learned this statistic yesterday, and I want you to think about this for a second. There are 3 windmills at near Fields Point, right near Save the Bay,
Yep.
right around where the Johnson Wales campus
Yeah,
is.
they run for the Narragansett Bay
Sewer Treatment Commission. With each spin of that turbine, in other words, one complete cycle is enough electricity to power to power a home for a year. Listen to that again. With each turn of that turbine, one spin around, it makes enough electricity to power one home per year. That's an amazing source of energy. You know, when we talk about this Invenergy power plant, this frack gas power plant proposed for the middle of the woods in upstate northwestern Rhode Island, it's a jobs and economy issue. It's not an electricity production issue. We don't need the electricity. We're doing really well in terms of energy efficiency. It's a jobs and economy issue. And here's why it is. Because if 3 years ago, our governors, instead of our governor saying that our governor was going to support this, if our governor said, never mind, please go away, we've got other things that we want to do. Just think of what we could have done in 3 years. We could have solarized just about a lot of houses in the state of Rhode Island. We could have come up with plans and siting regulations that would make it easier, cheaper, and faster to permit solar projects all across the state.
All right, we got to get you to your point. You've got 2 minutes.
So how do we produce cheap electricity?
What do we do for Rhode Island's electricity? We got the highest rates in the country.
Highest rates in the country. Let's just put it out there. they're the highest rates in the country. And they're going to get higher, especially if this power plant gets built, because you are going to pay for the infrastructure. There's no other way around it.
So the alternative?
The alternative is to go to where we've been. Energy efficiency is the first fuel. That's the first fuel. We scooped out $12 million from the Energy Efficiency Fund last year, 2017. Speaker Mattiello decided that it was underutilized, and I put that in quotation marks, because that's what he said. It was underutilized. There's a lot of money there. Each one of your homes here tonight could be energy efficient, so that we get through with that. And then the next step is to make sure you get some solar panels on your roof or the ground in which you live.
All right.
Behind the meter is the cheapest way to produce electricity in New England.
Okay. Bill, you've got something to say about where we get our energy from, how we combat the extraordinary electric rates that businesses have to pay around here?
Yeah, it might be my apologies. Let's see. Yeah, the electric rates. I'm not a fan of the offshore wind turbines at 40 cents a kilowatt hour versus 4 from a natural gas plant. I'm just not excited about it. From an engineering standpoint, I understand for the future, we want to start weaning ourselves off fossil fuels. That's a laudable goal, but it's not a money saver at this point. And I think solar's where I would start investing my money, but solar on existing buildings and in existing structures. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to clear cut 60 acres to put a solar farm in, especially when it doesn't have a value. It's more expensive at this point than a natural gas plant. Now, right now, I agree, Rhode Island doesn't need electricity. We've shut Fall River down. Most of our costs are regulatory costs, it's transportation costs that are in the line usage charges. So what it means is, I think we should all switch to electricity. I think we should look at a country going to electricity for electric heat. We should be looking at it for electric cars, because it's so easy and environmentally friendly to transport what I call the BTU. This is the engineering me that's going to talk, okay? When I could take electricity, I could send it to California. Really easy, and I don't have a truck that goes off the road. I don't have an accident that happens in the truck. So it's really our distribution, and it's set up from the archaic age when we had these different utilities all over the country, and then we tried to deregulate, and we have rights of way, and we have power lines. So it's creating energy isn't really our issue right now. If I had my way, Rhode Island, my goal would be Rhode Island to be the first state that becomes energy efficient. I would also look to create a technology center that looks at the newest and cutting edge technologies, be it hydrogen cells, be it solar panels, be it wind, but not offshore. Again, my problem with offshore, what we're doing out there is we're hurting the fishing fleet, where when I have to repair that power mill in the ocean, now I gotta get in a boat, I can have an oil spill. It just doesn't make practical sense to me to maintain and repair an offshore windmill when solar technology is growing at leaps and bounds. I believe that's where we want to put our money is in solar and on existing buildings first. I might even look at some zoning regulations to require the new construction.
Okay, I like the new idea. Spencer, you got something about?
This is one of my favorite questions. People who know me well know that I built the first solar heated house in Rhode Island, and one of the reasons I did it was that a friend of mine was in an organization which was trying to stop the construction of a nuclear power plant at Rome Point. And so when some of my friends who are also friends of Paul Rosselli worry about the Burrillville power plant, I say, take a ride over to Rome Point and look at the power plant. There's nothing there. 45 years ago, there was no solar panel in the state of Rhode Island. 44 years ago, there was one. I built it in my living room. I was committed to this, I cared. And the reason is because I believe that we are in a geographic crisis, a weather crisis, which many of us do not understand. And add to that the fact that we've got something going on now called the sixth extinction. You don't have 6 hours for me to talk about that, so I want to just try to hit on a couple of these points. If there are any reporters out there, please call me. I'll sit down, I'll buy you a coffee, we'll do an hour on any one of these fine points. The question about the economics of it, and you mentioned the offshore power. And by the way, I am absolutely not in favor of the Burrillville power plant. I'll say it again. If you make me governor, there will be no Burrillville power plant. And my friend Bob Plain, who has an interesting newspaper called Rhode Island Future, said, how's he going to do that? Believe me, we're going to do it. The question is, what about how does it affect the economy? And I just want to bring to mind a book I read many years ago by Jane Jacobs, who I'm not sure whether she was an economist or a planner, but she was very famous as both. And she put forward a theory, which is that your economy gets better when you start to produce for yourself stuff that you used to have to bring in. Okay, what are we bringing in today? How do we make our economy better? One of the ways we make it better is we stop shipping boxcar loads of dollars out of state to bring petroleum products in state. Every time you build a wind tower, like the ones that Paul was mentioning, you make part of that power plant unnecessary. And if you're worried about batteries, there's a guy named Elon Musk out west who's building them very fast. They're coming. The technology is coming. 10 years ago, and by the way, when I had my solar business, we had a little store down in South County, and we had an inventory of 12 windmills, little ones. They were the only ones made in the US, the only ones that existed at all. I was a windmill dealer. That has gone way past me. There's a guy in North Kingstown today, his name is Mark DiPasquale. 10 years ago, you couldn't put up a wind tower if you wanted one. Today, and by the way, I've got his number on my cell phone, you can call him, you can have a wind tower. The only thing that's going to stop you is your local zoning board. We have to change our view of this. We are in a crisis. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, the shipyards went to work, they put up lights, and they ran 24 hours a day. Forgive me if I don't understand that we should be working on this problem 24 hours a day. It's a crisis. Now, I mentioned that there's not going to be a Burrillville power plant. Construction trade guys out there, if you're watching, don't worry. If I'm governor, you'll be very busy. You don't have to build the Burrillville power plant. There's plenty of other stuff to do. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Spencer. Now, Giovanni, you haven't weighed in on this. What do you got regarding Rhode Island's energy sources?
Well, I wanted to first of all thank Paul. He and I have spoken a little bit on this issue. You know, this isn't the leading issue for me. I'll be upfront with that. You know, I have kind of you know, more of an architectural approach to what Rhode Island should be doing, which would include this, obviously. But I would lean to subject matter experts to give me more information. But the reality, but the reality is, sure. But the reality is, you know, we spoke about an LED program that's in place now, and every business that has a profile they can see right on their bill that shows how much usage they have, if they fit the profile, can get the whole building, whatever they're in, retrofitted with LED lights immediately. And I think, was it $100 million that's out there that's not being utilized?
At the very least.
At the very least, $100 million. And yet we're kind of just waiting. There's one gentleman, I'll just use his first name, Vito. Vito says it's only going to happen if he knocks on everybody's door and shows them the bill, because they're not going to believe me when I tell them that they have to do it. But I wouldn't do it based on a regulation, but more on just being proactive, meaning the profile, you're this size business. I think we use the car wash as an example. You're a car wash, you know, this is how much you're using. We're going to show you, if you change everything to LED, within a year, your bill basically goes away. So why wouldn't someone want to save $6,000 a month or whatever they're using in that scenario? But again, it's an educational situation. But more importantly, if I'm that business, just show me. Say, this is, you've reached that profile, and automatically switch me. So you have to become an LED facility. Like, that's it. Like, it's those kinds of steps. So to wrap it up, bottom line is, on that issue, obviously I would have subject matter experts that would look into the overall plan. On April 10th, I'm doing what's called the Rhode Island Papers. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's something that is part of what is Rhode Island 50 years from now? What are we supposed to look like? That's what we should design. That's what we should be. And then, hey, it's going to be somebody for the next 4 or 8 that starts that process of evolution, and you continue it. But we must change completely to become the best state in the nation in most categories.
All right. I'd like to, well, let me just go to
I want to thank Giovanni for coming to that meeting. You learned a lot. That was great.
all right, so Paul,
You got the program. You got it very well.
a candidate for lieutenant governor has suggested that we take over the utility company, make it a public utility,
Yeah.
and quit paying National Grid to make their stockholders rich.
Can I say one thing before you jump in, because I know it's your topic? He's a great candidate, it's just the wrong country. He's awesome.
All right, but
No, I know who he's talking about. He's a great candidate, just the wrong country.
I just want to get all of you to tell me if you think we should take over. Should we take over the utility company?
Oh, should we take it over? So let's talk about what exists in Rhode Island now. There are actually one or two.
Pasco
Electric, which does very well. And that's a local utility company providing local services, both electricity,
And how long were the
maintenance.
people up there blacked out after the last storm?
Oh, great question. So on average, the rest of the state was anywhere between 1 and 4 days. Pasco Electric was up and running within hours, I think. Is that true? There were a couple of people from Pasco here. Yeah, a couple of hours. Smaller area, but they get out there with their trucks. They know the territory. They're local people. They live in the area. They get it.
All right, so what's the answer?
That's the answer.
What?
The
Take over the utility company.
I think there's a process along the way where that multinational company has to come back to Rhode Island. Whether we call it nationalize it or whatever it is, we've got to bring that money back.
I pay the bill every week.
Well, you ratepayers have to get some equity in that company, and the way to get equity in that company is to somehow move it towards a private or national or Rhode Island-based company.
Private, national, or Rhode Island-based company. Bill, what do you think?
That talk scares me. It really does, because when you take over a company, we have the Constitution, and we have eminent domain statutes that require us to pay just compensation when we take anything from anybody. We're a property rights country, and let me talk about scoops. Scoop, scoop, scoop. That's what we keep doing. I don't know that I want to trust my government with another.
Wait, listen, we can talk about scoops. I just want to get all you guys on this thing.
Well, no, I don't think that we want to nationalize things. Again, I don't know. I don't even have a mechanism of what that line distribution is worth. That's what drives our costs for electricity in the state of Rhode Island, is the line distribution costs. So until somebody does a study and an impact statement on what the value of that is, how do you just take it over? You just take everybody that's a stockholder and say, you know what, you don't own that stock anymore. Why don't we do that with Stop and Shop? Why don't we do that with other businesses that make more sense? We all eat. We all need some food. Why don't we just go get a nationalized food product? That's not what we do.
Okay. Spencer, what do you think?
Bill, I'm going to ask you to forgive me. You asked a question in the last round, which I didn't answer, and it had to do with why did all the jobs go to Fall River. If I could just touch on that real quick. One of the reasons the jobs all go to Fall River is because we've got a lot of economic disincentives in this state, and I just want to mention one of them. Housing. You can't build a house in this state. That's why if somebody wants to come here and get a job as a welder, they got no place to live. You know who understands that? Because I've heard him talk about it on the radio? Giovanni. He understands, I don't want to commit myself totally to his program because I haven't heard all of it, but I have a feeling that here's one guy who really understands why houses are not being built in this state and why that relates to the fact that welders can't come and work here. That's why they're in Fall River.
Should we take over the power company?
Say again? Take over the power company. You're going to see, because of the technology that's coming, you're going to see more and more smaller and regional power companies. Studies have been done about the public acceptance of wind towers. This is on the same track. People like them if they own them. They tend to not like them if they don't own them. This is true in Europe in particular. So I think you're going to see more wind towers owned by communities or by towns. You're going to see batteries, which changes the technology. The power does not have to come from upstate New York. So I think that whether we make it a policy or not, we are going to have smaller, locally owned utilities.
Yeah.
Just want to add, there are a lot of Rhode Islanders actually that are selling power. They work for other companies. You can reduce your power, your bill, by just changing who you buy it from. I know a lot of people that are doing it. I know, frankly, that's one of the fastest growing industries when it comes to individuals who are selling it. But I did want to say, this goes back to decision making as well. As you know, in the military, you have a second and third order effect. So, saying take it over, the state taking it over, what's the second order effect? How many jobs
are now all of a sudden state jobs? How many pensions now that we have to fund for the rest of our lives? Okay? Taxpayers, taxpayers, taxpayers. Just funny. So they, again, I'm sorry, but I'm somebody who ran for lieutenant governor when I was 26 years old. So that was 24 years ago, basically a quarter of a century ago. I'm a different person today than I was 25 years ago, okay? That gentleman needs a lot more experience and a lot more learning. No, because he would say something like that, not understanding the second and third order effects. We're the ones left holding the bag, funding that kind of entity for the rest of our lives.
But that's not what's happening today. What is happening today is things like distributed generation, virtual metering, virtual distributed generation, where there's a series of windmills somewhere else, and then they put that power on that grid. So a lot of, and what Spencer is saying, and I disagree with Bill, I think it's going to happen no matter what. As more and more windmills get placed up, that power goes right into the grid. The group or the individual who puts up those windmills gets paid for putting the power. That, in essence, is a power plant.
You're talking...
And Pasco Electric,
but let me ask you
rate
something.
Payers,
you just said that you believe that they should nationalize this system. So you want to put it on your house to earn. You said that you're going to put it on your house so you can earn. But then the state's going to take it from you. That's what you want. You want the state to own the power on your house.
No, I'm not saying that.
So you don't want it nationalized.
I'm saying that eventually the rate payers are going to...
I'm at the point of ownership. We talked about taking it over. So you want to have distribution like we have now. We could put reverse meters on our house.
That's right.
But you want the state to own those meters now.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
I thought you said you wanted to take over the national electric system.
So I like the
I don't know how you line that up.
I like the Pasco
Take
Electric
theirs, not
model.
yours.
The Pasco Electric
That's my
model
problem.
is the rate
No, but
payers.
he does point out a contradiction, right?
Yeah, the rate payers are paying for that electricity. The rate payers are paying for the maintenance.
But the transmission lines are still going to be owned by National Grid.
That's right. No, we've got to figure out some way, and I don't know what that way is.
So you agree with me?
I like your approach, but eventually what's going to happen?
You want anybody to own anything on your house?
By default, and probably by
default.
Probably by progress.
I don't.
It's going to happen.
By default,
whether we like it or not.
So we're going to have like an accident. We're going to put solar panels on my house, and then by accident somehow the state's going to come along and take my solar panels.
No, I hope not.
Oh, so it's not by accident, by default.
No. The
Default
state
seems like we're heading in that direction no matter what.
Under this administration,
I don't like it when these guys fight. I want them to fight with me.
Hey, so, all right, let's go to another plan where the government is stepped in, and that's the free college, the Rhode Island Promise is called. And there's free tuition for the first 2 years at CCRI, or the only 2 years at CCRI. Meanwhile, we're seeing a rate hike for the kids that are going to RIC and URI. What's going on here, Jim?
Well, for me, it's even more than that. It's about culture. You know, I'm an Italian immigrant who grew up in West Warwick, Rhode Island. You know, I worked at Jerry's Supermarket. I had 3 paper routes. I cut lawns, refereed basketball. I did everything I'm supposed to do and figure out how to go to URI. I'm the result of that. I'm the result of hard work. You know, and what we're doing now is we're setting aside any type of hard work, anything that the youth have to overcome. Everything's free. Everything's free. What kind of leaders are we going to get? What kind of decision makers are we going to get? So, speaking specifically for CCRI, that was sold to us, first of all, I think erroneously. In other words, it's picking and choosing which kids we're gonna help. You know, we're gonna help this family, not that family, but with everybody's money. Okay? So you go to CCRI, but if you go to RIC and you're a freshman, you don't get anything. Right? What's that all about? So it's kind of just weird to me. It's like, okay, so she's starting somewhere. She started with CCRI, then they'll probably go somewhere else, but the money's just gonna keep skyrocketing. You know, they said, oh, it's a nominal, a drop in the bucket, as she said. Do you understand, for out-of-state students, I think it was like $826, like the jump. That's a lot. I mean, that's probably for some kind of the offsetting the tax cuts, half of them for a family somewhere. So just think about how these people think. It's always, but so for me, it's just a two-part answer. One is I absolutely don't agree with it because, again, it's not a well thought out plan. Can there be something in the future where it says, okay, we've decided that 11th and 12th grade doesn't look like this anymore, and you know, we get kids that are done at 20 instead of 22, and they should be in all these other programs, and we're funding something differently. That's one thing. And then the second part is, I just happen to be someone who I believe culturally, we're really hurting the state of Rhode Island. And specific to that example, and then I'll sit down on that, was this. I'll never forget it, because it's really one of maybe 2 or 3 things that really prompted me to run for governor. And it was the governor, the present governor, saying, I was at Rhode Island College, I'm talking to some student, and he had 2 jobs and he's going to school, and that's just not right. And I'm like, holy smokes, that's the guy I want. That's the person I want in this state, okay? And that's what's going to make us the best state in the nation.
All right, let me ask you, Spencer, free college at CCRI, good idea?
You know, this whole thing is going, we're not criticizing, we're all running for governor, but we're not criticizing the governor. No wonder nobody's paying any attention to us. The program that the governor, that Gina Raimondo proposed, is a political program. And it's gotten to be a little feud between the speaker and the governor. My opinion, you know, take it from my point of view, is that we have 3 public higher education institutions. We should work in the direction of having them, in effect, be no cost to the students. In Europe, you file a $100 or a $50 registration fee, and after that's done, you're paid. Here's the thing. One of the things we have to be looking at in the future, all of us here probably should be thinking about it, and all the other candidates, people want a universal health program because it's going to cost us all 25 or 30% less. One of the obstacles to that program is doctors have to spend a lot of money getting educated. Maybe we ought to start there. In Europe, doctors don't spend money getting educated. They educate smart people to become doctors. So we could learn a lot from some of the other countries and what they're doing. Bottom line, yes, we should do that funding, but the catch is, our budget is so messed up today, we can't do it soon.
Paul?
A few weeks ago, I was at Rhode Island College, and there was a student there, and we were chatting about what I was trying to do, run for governor, and she came up to me and she said, you know, the governor's giving away a couple $1,000 per student to go to CCRI. And she looked at me and said, I've got $20,000 worth of debt. What's the governor, what's the state of Rhode Island doing for me? My 2 kids both are college grads, thank God, and they're both in debt up to their eyeballs. We're trying to help them as parents. So what do? There's got to be a universal look at this. I'm 65 years old, I'm back in school again. And it's not cheap. It's not cheap to go back to school. I'm not getting any support from anywhere. I work a couple of jobs. My kids worked a couple of jobs when they went to school. You're absolutely right. Those are the people we need. But there is room here. I remember when I was going to school that there were grants. They were modest, a few $100s here, a few $100s there, kind of a Kickstarter grant to get you into that. Free education doesn't sound right to me.
Okay.
But kickstarting it, that's a good idea, at any age.
Bill?
I'm agreeing with Gio on this one. I think this is a 2-part answer here. And I don't want to bash Gina. I think it absolutely was a political move, but why was it? Because it worked. People want education. You only get bribed to people with things they want. Nobody's going to get bribed with something they don't want. And education is something that I think we need to do. I believe in a full-day kindergarten. I think every kid in the state of Rhode Island should have a full-day kindergarten. I believe that a high school education is not enough at this time. And I think that we need to maybe extend it to at least 2 years. I don't know if that it's college per se. I think some people aren't college bound. I think vocational programs in this state need to be quadrupled, if not tenfold. I'm having trouble finding welders and carpenters and machinists. You know, I went through a point in time about 4 years ago where I'd hire a machinist and I was paying him $30 an hour, and then he would quit and go to Rolls Royce and he'd get $32 an hour. Then I'd hire him back for 34, then he'd go and get 36. Because to find somebody that can run a 5-axis machine is pretty tough. Right now, our plumbers are billing out at about 80 bucks an hour. If they own the company, they're billing out at $165 an hour. But people don't realize the level of education that a plumber takes, because it's not a college degree, but it's 44,000 hours and 7,000 hours to get that master plumber's license. You can make a heck of a good living. Now, this is why I don't want to complain about Gina. You know, yeah, we're trying to all run against her, but I talked about bringing people together. If we want to bring businesses, we need to have skilled labor. And if we want skilled labor, we need businesses. This is one of those symbiotic relationships. If we start knocking each other, none of it's going to happen. Now, I don't know how we should pay for things. That's why I like groups. This is where you get in a group, we have a committee, we get in there, we hash it out, and hopefully come out at 5 o'clock and we say, here's what we're going to do. What level of education do you expect? And should we expect as a country? I think that's the premise that we should start with. And then we figure out how to get there. Gina, I think, absolutely was pulling a political punch, because that's what incumbents can do. They can dangle freebies. But if I don't juxtapose and compare and contrast myself to a Gina, I'm not going to get elected, and I'm not going to do it by bashing. That's why you haven't heard me do much bashing. I'm going to tell you what my ideas are, what my plans are. And I think minimum quadruple right now the level of VOTEC schools. I could go with another 2 years of public education, and I think we should have, at a minimum, that full-day kindergarten. I think we're failing this generation. I actually think we've stolen their future. That's what I think.
Can I just add, Paul said, you know, at any age, which I thought was extremely important. So I've had people come up to me that, on this particular issue, they said, listen, I'm 56 years old. How come I can't go get 2 years worth of college? Because I no longer have a job, and I want to get back into the workforce, and I need to get, qualified for that. So I'm going to look at things always from a priority standpoint. And what I think is a priority in this state is we have to look at heads of households first, okay? So when you look at, for example, a lot of these tax incentives to bring corporations here for 50 jobs and 75 jobs, listen, every job's wanted, right? Good. But when they start the announcement, and I'll use Johnson & Johnson as an example, they said, oh, we can't wait to go to RISD and start interviewing. Well, how does that help my cousin Jackie, who lives down in West Warwick or Coventry, or so-and-so that's up in North Providence? How's that going to help a head of household? It's not taking care of a home. It's not taking care of the people who live there. That's what we're missing. So we keep focusing on the youth, but we're missing that gap. And that's where I would focus the dollars, because it's really worker retraining. It's workforce related. That's where I would put all the dollars, and not focus on that first 2 years of CCRI or RIC. I think that's where we should put the money.
You guys got something that you think that would be appropriate for these all to address?
I actually was going to ask about failures that, so we're getting a little too close still. Anyway, so I'm 30. We keep talking about our youth. Thank you, Paul. So I'm 30. I'm a millennial. I hate that term, but it is what it is. You're doing so much for our youth. Everyone's talking about the youth. Everyone's talking about COLAs and retirees, and oh, you're getting 65 Medicare. But right now, what is there for me to stay in Rhode Island for? There's nothing. I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it, and I went to the workforce and I got on-the-job training, and I'm in a good place now. But in 5 years, that could change. And so many companies are using a college degree now as like having a GED or a high school diploma. So really, what do you four, I mean, I don't know if you're running, Bill, but you four are going to do to keep people like me in the state? Because right now there's really nothing here besides that I want to stay here, but there isn't anything there for me.
All right, Spencer, you started off.
Did she say she's a 30-year-old intellectual? That's
Yeah,
how you
no,
identify
she
yourself?
said-
I don't know your name.
she said,
Okay,
yeah.
to answer the question, you're here because it's a great place to live. There are problems with the economy. It's a little slow. Forbes says we're the 41st worst economy to do business. CNN says we're the 45th. That may not be true, I don't believe it, but we have to take that seriously. If that weren't true, or if people didn't think it were true, companies would come here. I'm not sure what job you'd like to have, but they'd be here because this is really the best place to be. I know that, I can live anywhere. And matter of fact, I'm pretty sure any one of us in this room could live anywhere. We're here for a reason. Maybe you could be a teacher. Again, I don't know what your interests or your qualifications are. I think if you're a 30-year-old intellectual, you probably should be a teacher. We need them. We have a huge gap in our education system, which teachers have explained to me. And again, if there's a reporter out there, please call me. It'll take an hour to explain it. I have a program to change the way education from the age 1 to 8 to 3rd grade should be done in this state. And we should be talking about it, we should be doing it. And again, to answer maybe the first question that was brought up here, what does the governor do? More than vision. Vision is helpful, but you got to make it happen. And we need to bring people together, find out the details of what this program should be. If we change the way we educate people from age 1.5 or 2 to age to 3rd grade, and by the way, look at Lincoln School, they've got bassinets. In other words, it's not just a public school, private school thing. There's nothing wrong with educating kids that need it in Providence, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, Central Falls. We should be focusing on that, and we should be doing something different, because when they get out of the 3rd grade, if they can read, they'll make great welders, plumbers, steam fitters, and college professors or doctors or whatever else.
So Bill, what can the state do? What would the state do more of if you were governor to keep people like our overeducated millennials?
I want to thank her for coming. This is what I talk about purpose, value, and inspiration. Is I'm just like her. I want to leave. And so it's either leave or have a forum. Right? At 30 years old, I struggled. At 30 years old, I was a single father. Tiffany was, let's see, I think she was like 8. I didn't have a college degree. I worked at Toray Plastics, Japanese company, and I got skills. I didn't wait for somebody to do something for me. I'm not suggesting that you are. But what happens is, sometimes during this struggle, I forget that I'm moving forward. And even today, like Spencer and I talked on the phone, Gio and I have talked on the phone, Paul and I have had numerous lunches like the guy. And what I'm talking about is, we all love to complain, but we're still here. See, we're still in the fight. I got more fight in me. I'm not ready to leave. I love Rhode Island. I'm here on purpose. I moved up here when I was 18 years old. Right? I was down at Scarborough Beach and I met a girl. You know how that happens. Baby comes along. Right? And there I am. Now I'm stuck in Rhode Island. And it's like, but it was till I was about 33, not 30, where I realized, well, I'm in Rhode Island. I better grow some roots. See, if I want those things, it's up to me to grab a hold of them. Welcome to America. I have a right to go educate myself. I have a right to go learn a skill. And that's what I did. I tell you, my life is nothing like it was when I was 40 or when I was 30. And so now I find myself, I turned 50. Yeah? And now, like I said, I am no longer a victim of society. I am society. I make decisions. I'm in a position where I manage people and I hire them and I decide what they're going to make and I decide whether they're going to get promoted. And I can tell you, the people I promote, they're the people that invest in themselves.
So that's your suggestion. You're offering her hope. And
I'm gonna offer. If it's not just a pep talk, when people invest in themselves, people are more willing to invest in themselves. Believe me, right? How many people would hire a roofer? The roofer shows up at your house, and the guy says, hey, can I borrow a ladder? I don't have a ladder. You say, get out of here. Roofers have ladders, right? And if we want to be competitive in the state of Rhode Island so you can get a job, we need to be competitive. I have 4 houses in 4 different states, and this is the one that sucks the worst. I got better deals everywhere else I go, but I'm still here. See, I got to remember, I'm still here. I like this state. It's worth fighting for. I can have a hamburger in a 300-year-old restaurant in Newport, and I can walk across the street through a $300 million yacht. See, it depends what I talk about. It's about attitude. I wake up in the morning, and some days I'm driving along, and everything bothers me there. I catch all the red lights. Other days, man, I wake up and say, no, go ahead, man. Take your time. I'm in no hurry. The difference always is when I wake up, is good day or bad day. I can choose. And I get to invest in myself, and we can invest in our state. We need to change the things that we do, and we need to fix the brick and mortar of our schools, of our roads. We got to fix the potholes. You know why? That keeps people here. If we don't keep people here, we're going to pay more next year for less. But nobody's going to come here. We need to grow. Fixing everything does not make people grow. It's not going to make our state grow. Nobody's going to leave MIT and say, let's go to Rhode Island. They got no potholes. It's not going to happen. We got to think big. Now we got to do the cool things. Cool things like Gio's talking about. We got to do things like International Drive, like in Orlando, or Fremont Street in Las Vegas. We got to do those things that bring people to Rhode Island. We got to turn Newport up. We got to turn Narragansett up. We got Taylor Swift to move here, and then we passed a tax to keep her out. That's not the kind of economy we want, a Taylor Swift tax.
All right, let me ask the other guys. Paul, what do you suggest for a 30-year-old in Rhode Island looking for a reason to stay?
Yeah. So, I'm a native. I've lived here my whole life. Grew up in what's now known as the north end of Providence. Even at a young age, there was that sense of community, that sense of place. There was a backyard fields and farmlands, believe it or not, in now what's known as the North End, Charles Street, Branch Avenue area. It's hard to believe that one of the first things I ever heard was the sound of a blacksmith hitting an anvil, making horseshoes for a horse that would then go race at B.A. Dario. That sense of community, that sense of place has diminished over the years. Our environment is key. The rivers, lakes, ponds, and streams, the bugs and creepy crawlers that live with us. Those are all part of our sense of place. It's also the people, the small businesses. We're a culinary place. We're a foodie place. We may not rank as high in major businesses, but in terms of small businesses, nonprofit organizations, we're number 1 or 2 in the region, and just in terms of the growth and how we manage ourselves. We're also an educational state. We got more universities and colleges per square foot than just about anywhere else in the entire United States. That's our plus. And we need someone in leadership to utilize all of those resources so that you and you can stay here. Those resources are not being utilized. They're being exported. We send money out of state, so we try to entice people to come here. $20,000 a job in terms of a giveaway program to get people to come here. And then 3 or 4 years later, they take off. We don't have any clue at all if any of those giveaway programs actually help our state at all. So for you, Alicia, what I would say is stay the course. Work to make it better. Get involved in politics, and I know you do. That's what we all need to do, because if we can do that collectively, if we can manage our environment, our small businesses, and have someone as a leader who can see the value in all of that, then someone like you will stay.
All right, Gio.
I always appreciate subject matter expertise, and I've deferred on a lot of matters.
So I hope you recognize now I'm the subject matter expert in this topic, okay? This is what's gonna happen. We need to look at Rhode Island as if Boston is Manhattan, okay? We are the New Jersey to Manhattan. We're the Connecticut to Manhattan. We're the Long Island to Manhattan, the Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island. If you understand that, then what happens is the following. We don't compete for companies that we cannot compete with. Those are just, you know, ruses to say we're in the game. I think that's our famous line, okay? We're in the game when we pitch something. Reality is we can't compete with those companies. They're gonna go to Boston. What we can do is create infrastructure from housing, to public safety, to transportation. And I'll be upfront. Is it for some of us in this room? Probably not. Is it for my kids? People in their 20s, 30s? Absolutely, absolutely. If the right infrastructure is in place, if the right transportation is in place, I know you all read the news and watch TV. You see what Elon Musk is doing. You see what these people are doing. I believe, and I hope you can agree with me, if not tonight, in hopefully less than 100 and whatever plus days, understand we're gonna move in 20 minutes. We're not gonna move in 2 hours, okay? He's not talking about toll booths and we're gonna have flying cars. It's crazy. That's happening. The Boring Company, the Elon Musk company, they're building the infrastructure underneath DC right now. They're doing it in LA. They're gonna have pods moving around, just like you go to an airport. It would be a little odd for us to get on a tram at TF Green, but it wouldn't be odd if we're in Detroit. It wouldn't be odd if we're at another airport where you get in and it takes us to A or gate B. That's what happens. So let's think a little bit differently. I'm gonna give you some concrete examples. If I was governor when the Amazon proposal was put in, you know what I would have done? Very straightforward. I would have emptied the Providence Place Mall. The Providence Place Mall would have been emptied to Westminster Street. Westminster Street would have been the Newbury Street of Rhode Island, of Providence. You'd have all your shopping outdoors the way people want it. It would have had second, third order effects that would have been enormously popular and real change for us. That would have created an infrastructure that we built back in the mid-90s and repurposed it. We then would have had public safety that took people to, and had it built in so that when people are transported to a train station or to Westminster Street or to other places, that have all where our money's going. So that's what's important, but I will tell you for you specifically, I want you to remember this, and always remember I said it, okay? The blockchain is going to change your life, okay? The blockchain would be equivalent to the internet in the early 90s, okay? All that most people know about the blockchain is called Bitcoin. That's like saying MySpace on the internet, okay? It doesn't exist anymore. It was an early adapter. We now have, you know, Facebook and other things that have happened. Well, the blockchain is this. Right now, you don't own your identity. If I need information for your license, you have to go to DMV to get it. If I need a birth record, you have to go to a state office to get it, whatever it is. On the blockchain, just imagine, I'm going to give you very brief, but if I need something from you, I don't know, I'm a URI and I need your transcripts from high school X. The blockchain will be where it's stored, and it's stored on a number of computers, decentralized. Everybody can decide to offer their services, their computer to the blockchain. When I ask for it, you send it to me, I get a code. The minute I open it up, I utilize it for my purposes, it then expires. I don't need people for that. We don't need a DMV anymore. We don't need things. Anything that you need a transaction for, information on, it's just gonna go, it's gonna come to me, you push a button on your phone, it's gonna happen. What we then have to do is take the people who work those jobs in the public sector, listen, I get it, there's gonna be 2,000 to 3,000 people that won't have a job to go to anymore because we don't need them. Okay, I need a title, I'm gonna push the button, and the title's gonna go from me to him, I bought this car. Whatever it is, like it's just gonna happen. That's all happening right now. as a state, there's 2 states that have taken the lead, Wyoming and North Carolina. They've started creating the infrastructure for all the companies that are going to transition every single record onto the blockchain. This is true of insurance, health health, obviously there's certain HIPAA laws and stuff, but health insurance information, all of those things are going to go on the blockchain. They need coders, so that'll be a whole industry. But more importantly, if we don't tax these companies, overtax them, instead create a Rhode Island that could be an equivalent to a Monaco, okay? Because right now, what are they doing? They're gonna have to go to the Cayman Islands. They're going to the Monacos. They want to, I don't want to pay taxes. Why do I have to do all that? I'll go to all these other places. We can be the leaders. Think of how our size is our advantage. Our locale is our advantage. Being the home to the blockchain and the people who will build the next Silicon Valley on the blockchain is the answer for Rhode Island. You won't go anywhere. You actually could become a multi-millionaire if you get in there early, okay? Working on those, working with those companies. That's how early it is. It would be literally like starting a company in 1992. What's available now, in other words, is like a cars.com, which you would never be able to buy right now. You could buy a cars.coin someday, very soon. It'll happen, it's happening.
All right, we'll stay in
Okay.
touch.
Thank you. Thank you
I
for
may
your
not be
time.
30, but I'm still interested. Okay, Spencer.
You know, after listening to the visionary Giovanni Ferrucci, I forgot the question.
What do you want to make, how are you, as the governor of Rhode Island, going to keep 30-year-old people who want to stay in?
You know, it is a question, we've heard about kids and so on. I had 4 kids, they're all grown and working. One of them lives in Providence, the others are not in the state. They all left college and they all went to live someplace else. Usually it's New York or Brooklyn or someplace like that. Because that's their view. They want something different, more exciting, more possibilities. From my point of view, the possibilities are here. There are some mistakes. In terms of economic development, it sounds a little bit like economic development as an issue. What I would have done with Amazon, I would have called them up and said, I'll talk to you myself, and I'm not going to take you to an expensive restaurant. We're going to Dunkin' Donuts. We're going to find out what you want. And we're not going to give you a tax break, but we're going to show you why this is the best place to be. And those 20 cities would have Rhode Island on the list because the governor talked to the person that came to check out the situation. And we all know that this is the best place to do business. Boston is under a foot of water, part of it. You can't get around Boston. New York is impossible. The Northern Virginia area, which is one of their places, that's so jammed up with new condo skyscrapers that you can't even move around. This is the place to be. The weather's just right. We all know that. That's why we're here. That's why I don't think you're going to leave, but let's make it a little easier for you. So my platform as governor is to, and these are all very complicated issues. I mentioned housing, and I didn't hear it tonight, but I want to hear it, and if there's a reporter out there, please call and write the story so I can read it. Giovanni understands housing, I think. If he doesn't, we'll discuss it. But I think he does, and I think he's right, and I don't think anybody else does, or not too many people. I know that my friend, who is the president of the Builders Association, he understands it. But you can't build a house in this state. I'm a builder. You cannot build a house in this state and sell it to a welder. That's a problem. Maybe she can't buy a house. Same problem. So my platform is to make this state desirable for a genius industrial manager like Bill Gilbert to want to stay here. That's my goal. And if Bill Gilbert stays here and I'm governor, I will have accomplished what I'm trying to accomplish. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I feel like we just heard closing statements from these 3 guys. Are there more questions that you all want to get? We've been at this for 90 minutes now. You have a favorite up there. Okay, you have a question for Spencer. Here's a microphone.
Hi, Spencer. Rhoda Northrup from Cranston. The past 2.5 years or so, I have been campaigning with the people from Burrillville and all over the state, for that matter, in opposition to the proposed power plant. Now, you said that if you were elected governor, the power plant would not happen. However, the current governor tells us that we have to trust the process, and the siting board has the ultimate decision on that proposed power plant. I want to know, how would you change that if you're elected?
By the way, one of the members of that three-person siting board resigned today
Yes.
and won't be taking part in the decision.
Last Thursday.
If there's a reporter out there, find out why. I want to know what, but I also want to know why.
There is a
Maybe Steve
reporter
knows.
out there and he knows why.
But how do you prevent? One of my problems is that the governor seems to want to be on both sides of this, and you can't be on both sides of this issue if you're out in Chicago collecting campaign contributions, building up a $3.5 million, $5 million war chest to beat poor little guys like us, and then be objective. The people who are making that decisions are basically appointed by the governor, and they can say, well, gee, I don't talk to the governor very often. Guess what? I don't believe it. The governor is going to make that decision. One of the reasons I'm running, and I'll admit it, one of the reasons that pushed me into running for this really difficult, not that well paid, annoying job, but by the way, if you elect me, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna love it. But one of the things that pushed me into this is that I was tired of seeing the governor being on both sides of this issue. I wanted her to delay her decision until Paul Roselli or somebody gets to be governor and decides not to do it, or me. And you know what? It's working. The board is not making a decision because the governor is trying to run for vice president and she can't take the chance of not getting reelected. We're here, or at least I am, to make sure that that option plays out a little differently. I don't know if that answers
You
your
okay with that,
question.
Nancy? What do you want him to say? What do you
Well,
need?
how would you change, the siting board exists as the ultimate power. The governor has washed her hands of it. She said it's out of her hands, we have to trust the process.
I don't believe her, do you? I don't, you know, again, I mentioned, I was 12 years in the legislature. I've owned several small businesses. I have been in the Army. I've been around a little bit. I've owned property in Rhode Island and not in Rhode Island. I don't believe everything everybody tells me. I'll sit down and talk to anybody. I'll look at them and see if I think they're telling me the truth. I don't believe her.
All right, we're gonna get another question.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thanks, Bill, for moderating. My question is, I'm a state worker, and I've been a state worker for a long time, and I've been taking the beatings along the way. Now, unfortunately, I have to wish time away because I want to make that goal over the next 2 years before any more changes are made. That being said, I pay state taxes. I was wondering if at any time would anybody consider once a state worker does retire that they don't get taxed on their pension, because we pay state taxes, therefore we're paying for our own paychecks in a minimal way, and then we get taxed when we retire. I was just wondering what your consideration on that would be, if any.
So one of the things that's happened over the last couple of years is that the 1 or 2% who pay taxes, their tax rate went down. Your tax rate went up. So that's one. Two, as a state worker, you lost a lot of money in your pension. Over the last 4 years when our governor was treasurer, to the past 3 years when, thank goodness, Seth Magaziner, our current treasurer, is trying to move everything back to some sensible, manageable, local types of investments. That was a lot of money that was lost. So you got hit twice. You got hit twice. If any one of us is elected, and if I'm lucky enough to get your vote and to get your hope and your will to do something different, I want to make sure you get your pension the way you were promised to get it. I want to make sure that we go back, look at just what you lost, so you don't have to sit in front of us and ask those kinds of questions. That should have been dealt with a long time ago. It wasn't. It was poorly handled, poorly managed, whatever we want to call it. Lack of leadership, whatever it was. Let's stop fooling ourselves here. Let's tell the truth for a second. You deserve your pension.
All right, let's, anybody else want to comment on the idea of not taxing pensions?
Sure. I think your question, though, I want to just broaden it just for a second, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And you hear a lot about the death tax, right?
I don't think people understand what the death tax is. Death tax is any money I made when I pass, as it goes to my heirs, they're going to get taxed again if it's over a certain amount. On money, I already paid taxes on. So I'm open to a lot of ideas, such as yours and others, because it's logical, right? But it does require, and this is extremely important, that we cut expenses. Okay, we need to cut down the state budget. $9.4 billion is way too high. We need to slash that budget. And where I would focus is on actual collection of revenue. We have too many programs in this state that we're paying people to collect taxes, to collect fines, to regulations, all this stuff. And the reality is, let's say we have roughly 17,000 workers, right? Say we were to slash a couple thousand down in the right areas. I'm not talking about corrections, I'm not talking other areas that we need, we can transition to the private sector. We need to transition those people over or have that position sunset once they retire or move on. In that reduction, sure, it can allow for everyone to look at things differently. What you said sounds right to a normal person, that you are being taxed on your money, which is the state, right? So it's weird, but at the same time, I think that you have to broaden the whole discussion. We can't just, frankly, just look at one area. We need to broaden it up, and we need to lower the tax burden on everybody, period.
Yes.
Well, just to, to be completely honest with you, it's probably going to be a long time before state employees, public employees don't pay taxes on their income, on their retirement. But what I can tell you is if you have 2 years more to go, I'm not sure if I understood that question, I think in less than 2 years, we should restore those COLAs which people had in mind. They were expecting them the day they made their mind up to dedicate their life's career to the state of Rhode Island. Not every public employee is perfect, but they're pretty darn good. And they work very hard and they've done a lot for this state. And when we change essentially the pay rate on all of these people, some of these people are stuck. You may be stuck. We're going to have to bring in somebody to replace you, and we're going to have to pay them something. And we're not going to say, hey, by the way, come to Rhode Island. We don't have COLAs, and we've made retirement difficult. And we can't raise the paychecks because we're burdening ourselves with bonds to send money to New York. In other words, there are things we can do, even if we can't, in effect, give you tax-free pension. Thanks.
We got another question back here. Did you want to jump in here, Bill? Or just on whether pension should be taxed?
I think the position that I would take is that a state pension should be taxed like every other pension. If people are putting their own money in through a 401k and they don't have a pension, I don't know that I want to tax that, not a state worker. I think life isn't fair, but the government should be. That's my motto.
All right, thanks.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. My name's Mark, I'm a Providence resident. I own a home in Providence. I got it at the bottom of the market, it's a multifamily, so I basically don't pay a mortgage. So I've been able to figure out a way to stay in Rhode Island because I love the state. I'm 30 years old as well. My thing is that I find people aren't informed enough and educated enough on these issues. For example, I want to get more involved in Providence City Council. I can't even watch or see the council member meeting online on YouTube. I volunteer at the YMCA's on Thursday. That's when the council meeting is. I've called Providence City Council and told them, how is this possible? You have West Warwick, all those other towns have YouTube videos. I feel like it's almost like you guys are trying not to inform the popular, the people on what's actually going on. My favorite segment for Channel 10 News is when Dan Jennings interviews Gina Raimondo. And yet you guys, I mean, not you guys, but it's like so difficult to find information. I want to go on a Rhode Island website. It's impossible. I go on the city of Providence's website. They have a 2017 calendar of their meetings on there. It's still there. You can go there. I've called them. They won't change it. Not only that, their service that they have is a paid-for service if you want to watch the video of the city council meeting. Tell me how you're going to educate more people. You said that there's a fund for companies to change over to LED lights. I haven't seen any commercials, no advertising for that fund. I hear more about Rise than I do about anything with companies changing over LED lights. When are you guys going to do to educate the populace so they can be more informed and more educated about political issues like this?
You know, our political system has failed you. It's failed you in terms of transparency.
I know that, but we're going to fix it.
Yeah. So there is money available. Believe it or not, there's money available for those programs. And they're not well advertised. So the idea here is to, again, if we could turn this clock back 3 years in terms of the energy part, in terms of that program, the small businesses, LED lights, there's a certain cap, and if you go a little bit above that cap, you don't qualify. If you go below it, you're in. National Grid does a real poor job of it, of advertising. We've got to ask National Grid to make sure it's in every bill, every email, every part of the website. That's number one. Municipalities, for their local businesses, their local Chamber of Commerces, both in Northern Rhode Island, Providence Chamber of Commerce, Southern Chamber of Commerce, those should be the places where those things are advertised more. Remember, Speaker Mattiello said, I'm going to scoop out $12 million from the Energy Efficiency Fund because it was underutilized.
Same thing with the 911 program, right?
Oh, we can spend a week doing that, talking about that. But specific to your comments about transparency and particularly Providence. Providence historically has had a problem transmitting just about anything, whether it be agendas, transcripts, and particularly in this day and age, any type of video. It's an easy fix. Provide some money, put some money in the budget, get it done. Period, end of story.
Anybody else want to take a crack at this?
You know, in South Kingstown, we have a guy named Billy Forbes who stands at a camera and films every town council meeting, and you can watch it. Why can't you do it in Providence? We're not the Providence City Council. Maybe we can talk to them at some point in the future. They'll listen to us. But you should go to a council meeting and bring that up. And while you're there, and when you're thinking about the meeting tonight, you might ask, why are there 5 candidates that aren't here responding to you? That's part of the problem. Maybe we need, if we get elected governor, to make that an issue, and maybe we need an inspector general working in the governor's office if the legislature won't pass one, and maybe that inspector general ought to do press conferences. We'll think of a way. You know, we'll respond to that.
Bill?
That's an excellent question, and I believe I'm doing it.
Yeah,
I'm doing what you asked. I brought everybody here, and I invited them here. I paid for the room. I don't know if anybody knows a guy named Jim Hummel, but he won an Arthur Morrow Award for a thing called Lobster Gate down in North Kingstown. That's a little story I fed him, and he did one of those "you paid for it" segments, right? And that was because a friend of mine named Chris Pratt and myself, we used to be that guy. We were the guys standing in the back of the North Kingstown school committee meetings and town council meetings. Digital cameras just came out and they're like $600, man. But you know, we went on it together, and we videotaped North Kingstown school committee meetings and town council meetings until they agreed to do it themselves. You know, we had the state interconnect. There's actually a full-blown movie TV studio at North Kingston High School with full production value. There's a PBS. There's a lot of cool things we could do. We don't have to wait for our government to do things. Now, I know it takes energy and effort and money, and that's what I've been doing. Okay, so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to bring that government back to the people. It's a team sport, though. It is a team sport. I only can do so much. I can invite people. I can't get all 5 of us here, but you guys can. You know, I don't know why in the day and age of the inexpensive cameras that it isn't mandatory that any public body is videotaped, and the cheapness of that. You could buy a terabyte of storage today. We could have it stored and streamed. You know, we got Steve over here. I've been watching his videos for a long time because he's doing exactly what you're talking about. Why is it Steve? I'm a little more nefarious. I believe it's on purpose. I believe our government's doing it on purpose. But it's hard to say that and not look like, I don't want to look like a radical nut, but I believe it's on purpose. Right? And
It is Providence after all.
Well, what I did tonight is right in front of Sarah. We're on Facebook Live right now.
that's what I mean, that's perfect.
Okay, that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Again, we're kind of so slow that I don't get it sometimes. You know, and I've been told that, you know, my ideas might be too bold and maybe I need to bring it down and so forth. But I'll tell you right now, I'm running because I don't want to have the dialogue be down here. I frankly, it's absurd that they don't videotape or show that thing live today. It's probably, unfortunately, because someone's lazy, right? How can they not have already thought this needs to be made available to the public, and let's just put Facebook Live? Who's going to do it tonight? Think someone on that payroll can just turn their phone on and just show it for a minute on their website? So it's really odd. So I don't know that I'll take it all the way down to the conspiracy part, but there is no reason for it. You know, I think technology needs to be really something that we decide is a bedrock of our vision again. You know, we need to decide who we are as a people. And I feel I teach this if I could just, one thing on my military management style, there's 4 phases of war. And I've incorporated this in what I do. Phase 1 is you prepare the battlefield. Phase 2 is you cross the line of departure. Phase 3 is active combat. And then phase 4 is what we don't do well as a nation. It's called security and stability operations. It's because we're stuck. We don't have policy that lines up, right? We don't own Afghanistan. We don't own Iraq. So we're there 16 years later figuring out, what do we do? What do we do? Well, in business, it's the same thing. You have the JCPenney's of the world. You know, McDonald's is thinking every day, what do we do? What do we do? And someone's like, I don't know, let's sell breakfast all day, right? Rhode Island has been stuck in phase 4 for decades. Decades, okay? And we have to understand you need people who have a lot of qualifications in addition to experience. It has to be. It just has to be. And I hope that you join me in following the campaign that way.
Bill, if you don't mind.
All right, unless, if there are any other questions on here?
We've spent nearly 2 hours
Right.
questions. Here's the questions I haven't heard. And these questions are just as important. How many people does Mathewson Street Church feed on a Sunday morning? What are the goals of the Rhode Island Black Business Association? How long has the Political Action Committee of the Latinos been in operation, and why have they been in operation for so long? Where are the homeless and hungry tonight? We haven't asked those kinds of questions. Now, I know we're going to do some more debates over the next 120, 130 days or so. Those are the questions that I want to get answers to. I want each of you here and those folks that aren't here to be able to answer those questions.
I think we've had a good session, guys. I think we can wrap it up. And I want to thank everybody for showing up. It's truly required of democracy that people show up like this. So thank you very much, and thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.